truth wins out over a long period of time. Truth does tend to surface because the lies can't hold up. You can't get them protected well enough on every side, and pretty soon they begin to come down. So this whole lie about the need to get jobs by protecting the wealthiest because they're going to spend their money investing, that is just absurd. It is just absurd. And it's not going to happen, and hasn't happened. And gradually, when people come to realize that, they're going to take the steps necessary to reclaim their government.
I've become convinced, watching the Middle Ages unfold and watching the last 200 years in this country unfold, that the story that we think we are living trumps everything else. So that unless the story that people think they are living, the narrative that says to us all, where are we as a people? What are we doing here as a people? And what is our role on the planet? What is it that we think we are doing here? And that story gives rise to power and strength. And without the story, no amount of single object legislation will make any difference in our future whatsoever. I believe that the success of Martin Luther King, the success of Gandhi, was different than the success of many of those efforts where we've gone after a single piece of legislation. It was greater than voting rights. It was something bigger that happened in America under the leadership of Martin Luther King. And it was bigger because everything about that movement was about human dignity and human consciousness and human survival. And that it was that moral ground which gave it its ultimate power. And the same was true with Gandhi in India. Without reference to and discovery of the intellectual bases of the moral ground of the effort can seem to be entirely self-serving and vicious and contentious, and there are always arguments on every side of every legislative proposal. But the argument that cannot be trumped is that we are people here, and that we count here, and that we have a right to participate in a system which is gradually foreclosing us and not allowing us to continue to participate in any meaningful way. We have a long history in which we are the unparalleled example of a revolt by people who wanted to be counted. That's what the 1776 revolution was about. It wasn't just about taxation. It was people who wanted to be counted. One place or another, we will be able to find and knit together a story of American history and our purpose here, which is different than that we are fungible products in a free market and can be bought and sold in accordance with the demand curve. That is not who we are. And we need to be able to create that story in a way that is not simply just shouting out in the wind. We need to be able to create that story in a way that we can do it gently, without trying to overcome people that we disagree with by simply saying it louder than they do, but by saying it more carefully, by saying it more persuasively, by saying it with references to Shakespeare and Dante and history and Greek history and everything else we can do, music and everything else we can bring to bear to show that we are people here. We have been sold, especially in the elections of 2010, we have been sold a story that the free market establishes morality, and that we will, as in self-interest and in the pursuit of greed, a la Ronald Reagan, we will somehow raise all boats. And that story took over the American electorate, swept the country in this last election. And unless some of us in small towns in Wisconsin and in small towns in Massachusetts and in New Jersey begin to articulate a story which is more accurate about how we got to where we are today, we will lose this one. And we will not just lose the 2012 election, we will lose democracy. It is democracy which is at the crossroads. It is a form of government by the people which is at the crossroads. And if we do not understand that the nature of where we came from and who we represent and the thing we're doing in history, which is unique to history, we will not be able to revive the last threads of democracy that we currently have.
It ought to be clear, multinational corporations are at war with democracy. They do not want local regulation to interfere with their drilling. They do not want local regulation to trump their health laws or their labor laws. And those things are what those local regulations come from the will of the people. They come from people trying to protect themselves. And when people can't protect themselves through their own democratic processes, The reason is because the plutocracy has taken over their democratic institutions. That's what's been happening.
The dream that all of us can become super rich is a fraud. It will never happen. Even the lucky of us in Santa Fe will never be the owners of jets, billion-dollar bonuses of the hedge funders and the Wall Street financiers. It is the super rich who are now living off the taxes and production and education produced by all the rest of us and all the rest of you. And we are here today because we are awakening to the burden we are carrying for them and the unfairness that comes when they do not share the burden and with us but rake up all the benefits to themselves, the wealth silos on Wall Street. The sound you hear from Santa Fe today is the sound of America arising, of construction workers and teachers and retired people and pensioners and firemen and policemen and state workers and farmers and ranchers opening their throats and raising their voices for dignity and decent fair wages and health care and educational opportunity in America, because we are people here in America. We are people here. We are people here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.